Yes, hello everybody, and welcome into week 2 of the Fantasy Wildcard DFS show, where we've got myself, Mags, and my amazing co-host here, one half of the best two of the Fantasy Wildcard team. It's Kev. You can follow him on X at Dynasty_GOAT. Kev, good to see you.
The best two, isn't it? Cheers for having us, Mags. DFS is where we're at. We're in the DFS streets now, looking to win people some money, and we've started a new contest, haven't we? Where we're running a $5 contest on this show, and we had our winner from week 1. Can you guess who it was?
I've got a pretty good idea. That was good fun. I came on last week saying, guys, I'd never done this before, and then just wipe the floor with all you. So this is easy, man. I gotta be honest. I'm already spending the money in my head. I'm entering £1 million mind makers. I'm putting down deposits on both. I'm excited.
You absolutely smashed it, Mags. I think just anybody out there listening, it's because it's a winner takes all type deal. You're getting such a better rake and an income. You're taking on maybe 15, 20 people this week, and you're earning as much if you come in second place in a 100-person tournament. So get involved, get a chance to take us on, but you have to be great to beat Mags.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll get to some of those tournament type players a little bit later on, but we're going to split this into two. We got our cash players, we got our tournament players. Now, the first bit we have cash, bit more reserved, bit safer, right? You're only looking to beat half of the field you're playing against, so you want to go with people with high ownership, a safe floor, and no one who's going to rock the boat too much. So, Kev, you're going to kick us off with some cash play quarterbacks. Who you got?
Yeah, you said about rocking the boat. This guy's rocking the locks most of the time. So, Justin Herbert's the first guy. 7,000 is at the Titans. We know what the Titans are. They're an absolute bully run defense. Jamal Williams found it really tough this week, as we expected. It could be that situation, even with great volume. Pass funnel offense. It's over under that's pretty decent this week as well. The Chargers are on the road, so as I mentioned with the Titans run defense, it's going to be tougher for Eckler, tougher for Josh Kelly, who made a couple of touchdowns this previous week. So I expect the game flow to be through Justin Herbert, through the passing game. I think he's rock solid in cash, but also sneaky in your tournaments. And the alternate pick to Justin Herbert, again, another potential shootout, high over-under is Jared Goff, 6,200 against the Seahawks. So we know that Goff last season in this game absolutely went berserk. I think Amon-Ra St. Brown looked great week 1 also. Sam Laporta did as well. Might come on to those dudes in a little bit, but again, Jared Goff, safe guy, reliable. We know that when he's at home, traditionally he's in the money. Last season, his home and away splits were quite eye-popping. So, I think if you're looking to play it safe, Justin Herbert, but if not, a little bit cheaper with Jared Goff.
Yeah, absolutely agree. I mean, Herbert, one of the safest pair of hands out there, right? And I mean, Puka Nacua and Tutu Atwell tore apart the Seahawks this week, so I'm sure Jared Goff and Amon-Ra St. Brown will do a pretty good job as well, right?
Oh, yeah, I mean, on the Dynasty show, we spoke about the Rams wide receivers, a bit of a shock, but I think those guys did a great job. Jared Goff's gonna do a great job as well, especially with the different talent that he's got around him compared to what Matt Stafford had this week.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's move on to our running backs, and I mean two sort of safe plays. First of all, pick anyone who's playing the Cardinals, right? I mean, especially someone with a point to prove. The Giants got absolutely smashed by the Cowboys. Expect a rebound and expect it to come in the form of an angry Saquon Barkley. So I know he's expensive. He's at $8,000, but he is playing the Cardinals. I can't imagine the Giants, laying a bigger, he can't score negative points, right? So, I can't imagine them laying a bigger egg than they did. I think Barkley's going to have a really nice bounce back. They're going to get him involved. They're going to want to win this game and then close it out in the running game using Saquon Barkley. I think he's an absolute smash, even at $100,000. And in second place, it's maybe a less obvious play, but it's Josh Jacobs at 7,100. The reason for that is the Bills' run defense did not look up to much at all last week. In fact, the Bills in general didn't look up to much at all. Losing to the Jets without Aaron Rodgers there. Yes, I do understand that they were going up against, two of the maybe arguably the best 1-2 punch at running back in the league right now with Breece Hall and Dalvin Cook. But Josh Jacobs is no slouch, so I expect him to do really well up against that Bills defense that has a lot of questions to answer for.
Yeah, I think what we're going to see process-wise this season is a lot of the cash running backs are going to be teams playing the Cardinals just with the game scripts that's going to go in their favour, that you're going to see them with leads and running the ball a lot. There's the chance for the 100 yards and the bonus points over at DraftKings. So Saquon's an absolute fine pick in a rebounding match. 8,000, yeah, it's a big price, but you'd be really confident of him hitting that with the upside for 100 yards and a couple of touchdowns as well. That's in a pretty good spot for that. And then Josh Jacobs, yeah, he was someone I actually really liked last week for sort of the tournament players, someone that could be potentially lower owned and go off. He didn't. The Broncos defense stifled him, but again, like we saw last night, I mean, Breece Hall had a 80-yard run on the Bills, and he was running about as fast as me. Like he got caught from behind, which if he was anywhere near fit, he wouldn't be getting caught from behind. So I think two really solid plays. Jacobs is one that might be a little bit under the radar, but yeah, I think he's in a good spot to bounce back in a big way.
Yeah, absolutely. So Kev, you went with your quarterbacks. You had Jared Goff and Justin Herbert, right? Who are your wide receivers?
Yeah, this is, again, could be considered spooky because I just try and pick the cash plays without any stacking or correlation, but I've gone for both of the stacks in cash. So Amon-Ra St. Brown, first of all, 7,700 against the Seahawks. Like we mentioned a little bit earlier, Nakua Atwell did major damage against the Seahawks in week 1. We know that Amon-Ra St. Brown, he's the focal point of the pass game. It's a high over-under. The slight worry that maybe the Seahawks have another bad game, and that would potentially cap massive ceilings for St. Brown, because I think he's a guy that if he's going to hit his ceiling, he needs 10 receptions with how he's used. He's not being used down the field as much as the other studs like Tyreek Hill, for example. But I think volume-wise, you're looking for safety. I don't think there's many that's safer than Amon-Ra in the league right now. And 7,700, slightly steeper price than maybe a lot would think. But again, he's giving you that guaranteed amount with a bit of ceiling as well if he does get into a crazy shootout. Keenan Allen's the other at 7,100 at the Titans. For the reasons mentioned on Herbert, it's a pass funnel offense. Out of the weapons, he's the one that's most reliable. You've got guys like Mike Williams, Everett, Josh Palmer, etc. So they're probably more on that tournament play, but I think with Keenan Allen, he's someone that, he's reliable. If it's not going to Eckler, it's got to be going to Keenan Allen. So yeah, they're two guys I'm really keen on. And just, I think one overarching point from me picking the QB and the wide receiver from the same games in cash is that these two guys at QB especially, they're going to be good in both your cash and your tournament lineups. So you will find that there is quite a bit of overlap at QB on those plays. Wide receivers, maybe not as much, but depending on your field size, your cash wide receivers can sometimes end up in your tournament lineups as well.
Yeah, I love that. Like, Amon-Ra St. Brown, CFS houses, right? Just, he's going to get those targets, going to get all those receptions. And then Keenan Allen, you know what I really liked about Keenan Allen last week? He looked like fit and healthy and strong, and he looked back to being like the Keenan Allen that we know. So, yeah, I expect him to go from strength to strength in week 2 against the Titans as well. So I love those picks. And we've got the flex position now, which I'm going to chat you through. And I had to do a bit of a double take here because Deebo Samuel, he's $5,600 I think that seems like a huge value, especially someone, excuse me, going up against the Rams, who, all intents and purposes, I know they had last week, but they're not a great team on paper. And I would expect the 49ers to do a really good job of tearing through them. Deebo Samuel's going to get the carries. He's going to get the receptions. I think this could be a big week for him. We know it's kind of hard to pick and choose with this team who's going to get what, but, Brandon Ayuk had a big week last week, so maybe Deebo's up for this week, right? It's kind of hard to choose, but why not go with Deebo for this week, especially for such a cheap price? And secondly, this is not necessarily the guy that it will be, but in spirit, I'm going with Gus Edwards at 5,300. If there's any news on who the backup is going to be, that's the person I'm going to pick. I'm going to pick the Ravens running back. It's not J.K. Dobbins, the other guy from the Ravens, right? Up against the absolute crap Cincinnati Bengals, right? They were so bad. I imagine they'll look a lot better, and Joe Burrow won't throw 3 completions or whatever. I don't know how many he did, but yeah, I think the Bengals, that defense didn't look like it was up to much last week. I think the Ravens are going to try and run him over and capitalize on a rare dip in form. So I like Gus Edwards or whoever is in there as the backup, or not the backup now, the starter. I'm still not over J.K. Dobbins, all right?
You just want to say, I honestly thought I was going to say J.K. Dobbins in the flex, but I think Deebo's price, it's interesting because people have probably overreacting to Brandon Ayuk. Yes, we've been calling for it in other formats like Dynasty for years that he should be considered above Ayuk, above Deebo. Sorry, but yeah, it's a really good price. We will see if that Seahawks Week 1 team was a mirage, if it's a real indicator or if it's not. So I think at the price, it's a fair crack. Gus Edwards, whoever is the running back for the Ravens, is going to be in for a nice workload. We saw that. We saw Nick Chubb had a really good day against the Bengals in Week 1. Gus Edwards and Justice Hill probably is a bit of a split backfield, but I think there's enough there for each of them to be really solid. I think it could be a bit of a slugfest, if I'm honest, but in the off chance it does get into more of a shootout type game, there's going to be opportunities. We saw Gus Edwards rumble in for a touchdown in Week 1 as well. So, I think you can tell a story at those prices as well, that you're at 5'6" and 5'3". It's giving you the opportunity to fit in guys like you mentioned, Saquon, Josh Jacobs as well. So, always worth weighing up sort of the cost and the upside in these forms. If you're going lower on someone else that maybe is slightly more of a risk for a workload, for their workload, you're going to get someone else that's absolutely guaranteed as well.
Yeah.
And this is your flex.
Yeah, exactly. And you spoke about being cost effective. You've got two pretty cost effective tight ends for us, right, Kev?
Yeah. What is it with me and the Lions this week? I think I believe like the Lions and coins and money, there's some sort of link there that Lions used to appear on notes, etc. and coins. So yeah, Sam Laporta, 3,900 against the Seahawks, as mentioned on Goff and Amon-Ra. I think really encouraging Week 1 from Laporta. I think got 5 targets, 5 receptions as a rookie in Week 1. And yeah, Seahawks did a good job on Higbee, but I do seem to think that they focused too much on Higbee, and maybe that opened up some opportunities elsewhere. The alternative is Jake Ferguson, 3,300 against the Jets. He got 7 targets in a game where they were 40-point winners. So encouraging the one to get him involved. Was that a play against the Giants, or was it that they seem like Dalton Schultz, a volume sort of guy? So I think this week, paying down a tight end, it might not be as safe as you want in a cash game, but I think at 3,300, there's worse picks you could make.
Yeah, absolutely. And tight end as well, it's so risky. Like you got to have like a Travis Kelce, right? Someone you can really bank on at that tight end position. Otherwise, you may as well, go for some of these cheaper guys and just, hope that they, get a touchdown or end up like having like a Hayden Hurst week or something like last week, right? Where he just happens to go off. So you may as well, conserve some of the money so you kind of go and afford a Saquon Barkley or somebody like that, right?
Indeed, yeah. I think, like you mentioned, if you're taking Barkley, there's got to be some sort of dip somewhere else. I think tight end's a perfect spot to be doing that this week.
Yeah, absolutely. And before we move on to our tournament players, I've got the defense and the special teams. I got two for you. The first one, I mean, woe betide anyone who bets against Puka Nacua, Tutu Atwell, and Van Jefferson, but I'm going for it. I'm picking the best defense in football. It's the San Francisco 49ers. They are 4,100, considerably more expensive than your tight ends. However, I mean, as good as Matthew Stafford was, I just don't think he's going to be good enough to get the ball out to these guys and also avoid getting smashed by this unbelievable defensive line that the 49ers have. So I think they're going to come up trumps against the Rams, who are going to take a pretty significant bump down to earth. And the second one, kind of the same reasoning I give for my Jordan Love pick last week. I'm picking the Bucks, not because they're good, but I told you guys last week, the Bears still absolutely suck. They are a terrible team. They were the worst team in the league last year. They're not much better this year. So I'll take the Bucks. I'll take those big, punishing linebackers. I've never really wanted to be someone to like put money or like bet on a player getting injured, but if Justin Fields plays like he did last week, he's going to leave the field on a stretcher because the Bucs are not going to put up with that at all. So he needs to be very careful against this big, heavy hitting team. And for 3,200, I bet they get a couple of sacks and Justin Fields for sure.
Yeah, I think first of all, 49ers, they're one of the expensive plays on the week, but in cash, you're looking for teams that are potentially going to be popular. I think how they went into the Steelers and absolutely dominated an offense that's got a ton of weapons, a ton of hype at quarterback as well. So that they're going to be popular. I think Bucks 3,200. Everyone will see what Green Bay did with in a game which Chicago were favourites. They did a really good job on field and the offense. I think the Bears have got a lot to answer for in that offensive scheme. It's not all on field; it's on the offensive line of play calling. There was one play where literally the four offensive linemen are just like turnstiles the other way. It was unreal scenes. But yeah, I think the Bucks are a really good price and they should be really popular.
Yeah, absolutely. So that brings us to the end of our cash plays. We're going to move into the tournament players, and just like I said at the top of the show, this is more your lower percentage, like a little more unique. You want to build these lineups that nobody else has because you want to come in first place. You're not just beating half the field. You want to beat everybody. And if you go too chalky, then you're probably going to end up with the same points as somebody, and you're going to miss out on these big plays that will propel you to the top. So you want to be a bit more risky than others. So Kev, we're going to go through the same positions again. You got the quarterbacks. Who are your sort of tournament play quarterbacks?
So yeah, we mentioned about you don't want to be chalky. You don't want to have players that are highly owned in overall. Really, you want to be below 100% if you're really looking to make headway in tournaments. But I think QB wise, that's where I start to build in tournaments. I look at the QB. I look at who I'm going to pair them with as a stack, and then somebody on the other side. And I think both these guys, they give you that opportunity to stack and then bring someone back on the other side who they're facing. So first guy, Trevor Lawrence, 6,700 against your Chiefs. Boo. It's a high over-under. They're at home. It's I think they're underdogs as well. So yeah, it's going to be a passing game for him. We know that there's weapons there. One I'll come on to in a little bit of time. But yeah, I just really like that there's upside there in the passing game. He did a really good job week one. There's also sneaky upside that we know he's got it in him that he can have rushing touchdown, which is massive for games like this as well. And it's no surprise that the alternate, it's the most expensive guy on the slate. It's your boy, Patrick Mahomes, 8,300 again. High over-under, shootout type potential. We saw with anybody that had Tua and Tyreek last week, if you get the stack in any game or you get the QB and the highest over-under, you've got a massive, massive chance of taking it home. Even if it's the popular player at QB or in the most popular game, first things first, get that right. You can get different at your other positions, tight end, defense, your flex spots. So Patrick Mahomes, 8,300. With the caveat, it's if Travis Kelce plays. Yeah. If he doesn't, I prefer to just go more into Trevor Lawrence or maybe one of the cash QBs I mentioned.
Yeah, I think that's really, really solid advice. I think that will be a bit of a shootout. The Jags are a really good team. The Chiefs are obviously a really good team as well. Patrick Mahomes, like, you don't, as much as we talked about this being risky, and I mean, I'll talk about this with one of my picks later. You don't want to miss out on the highest scoring player either. Like, you don't even be like, oh, I picked up, Zach Wilson. Like, only 1% of people had him. Yeah, it's because he scored 2 points, right? You want to get the highest scoring player as well. So it's a fine balance, definitely. So I think you've done that quite nicely. And I've kind of done that for my running backs, at least with one of them. Christian McCaffrey is very expensive. He is $8,900, but he's up against this Rams team that we already spoke about. We'll not go into it too much again. I think they're going to take a bump right back down to earth. I don't think they're going to be handling Christian McCaffrey at all. Brock Purdy could be under a little bit of pressure. They do have some okay pass rushers there, obviously, at the Rams still. Guy Aaron Donald, not bad. So look for Brock Purdy to be dumping the ball off to Christian McCaffrey, and maybe some more highlights like he had in week 1 would be amazing. And one player I thought, well, I've given a super expensive option. Let's cut it right down, $4,600. Someone who I think the Chiefs would be very, very smart to get more involved. It's Jerick McKinnon. I was shocked he was so uninvolved in the passing game last week against the Lions. Barely seen any targets, barely seen any workload. Isaiah Pacheco had a few targets. Clyde Edwards-Helaire came in and started the game. I think it would have been really good while the Chiefs were struggling to get some of these wide receivers involved. I thought Jerick McKinnon was for sure going to get a bit more work. You'd think Andy Reid is going to go back to the drawing board with that, have a little look. Matt Nagy's going to have a look, and they're going to say, you know what, we actually need to get Jerick McKinnon more involved in the passing game, because that's when things started to click last year before the Super Bowl. When Jerick McKinnon got hot, it was whenever the Chiefs really made that push on towards the Super Bowl. So I think he'll be more involved against the Jags, and he's pretty cheap.
Yeah, I think first of all, McCaffrey, it was 8,700 last week. You probably see him owning less than 10% of fields. I think with his price going up even further, it's going to dampen the ownership, which, like we said, in tournament play, you're looking for the players that are going to hit but aren't going to be owned. So I think it's a great shout. You want to tell yourself stories as well of what games could look like. I think, as you mentioned, potential shootouts. You want the guys that are going to really correlate off of that. And I think McKinnon, 4,600, it's a shout. If it doesn't go Pacheco's way, if there is that passing usage, we saw it with McKinnon last season. We saw it early on last season with Clyde Edwards-Helaire as well. He caught a couple of receiving touchdowns. Who's going to be playing McKinnon, really? There's not going to be many, is there?
Yeah, I completely agree. I think
just the winners.
Yeah, exactly. Like he's a sneaky one, I think. But we'll wait and see what happens with that. But you've got some wide receivers for us. Two of my favorite wide receivers in the league.
Yeah, I mean, I had Trevor Lawrence, didn't I, as my QB, so I had to pair it up with the stack with Calvin Ridley, a guy at 7,200 against Chiefs. It's going to be a massive ownership on him because it's really cheap on what he did week 1, and that hype will really build. I think for the right reasons as well, that you don't want to overreact, but that price is just dirt cheap. You can do an easy stack. There's options on the other side as well. Praying for the tight end that we discussed that he does make it back. But yeah, Calvin Ridley's the first one. Second guy, Devontae Adams, 7,600. He plays the Bills. He had an okay week 1. He got overshadowed by Jacob Myers, but Jacob Myers, he's in the concussion protocol, potentially going to miss this week. I think everything's got to go through Devontae Adams in the pass game. It's a high over-under. The Bills are going to want to put up a better performance than the Monday Night Football defeat, so I expect the Bills to bounce back, puts the Raiders in a position where they've got to throw. and he's got to go maybe to Josh Jacobs in the pass game when they get behind, which would be great for his sort of fantasy relevance, but also Devontae Adams, big bounce back week. He's not got Patrick Surtain on him. So, he's a guy I went for.
Yeah, I love the Calvin Ridley. Who says ring rust is a thing? It's that guy he looked faster than ever, he looked better than ever, and looked slick with that number 0 on the back as well. Absolutely loved it. Now, Devontae Adams is Devontae Adams, right? He's gonna, because he had a slow week last week, he's gonna have to catch up and accumulate these yards. We know he's gonna go over 1,000 yards, right? So he's gonna catch up in some weeks. So maybe he'll just score double what he normally does this week. So yeah, Devontae Adams always a good play, always ready to go off for sure. And I've got 2 flex guys for you. I'll start off with my the guy I actually had second, because you brought up a name there that I was going to mention, and it's maybe not one that we expected to be mentioned in this show, but it's Patrick Surtain. Now, the reason I'm picking this guy, Jahan Dotson, is because I think we might end up seeing a bit of a theme here that the play to make when you're playing like the Broncos is pick the number 2 receiver, because Pat Surtain is going to lock down whoever it is on the other side. So Terry McLaurin, I would be trying to avoid Terry McLaurin this week. Pat Surtain is about as good as it gets at the cornerback position. I mean, we've seen he kept Devontae Adams quiet. What's he going to do to Terry McLaurin, right? I think, so Jahan Dotson could end up being this week's Jacoby Myers, except, Jahan Dotson's actually good at football. Imagine what he can do. That's going to be brilliant. I think he'll have a pretty good week against the Broncos if, Sam Howell can continue developing. There were some flashes last week, but not overly positive, to be honest. But hopefully Dotson can work a way for himself to get involved. And at 4,900, that's a pretty good price, I think, on a guy that should outproduce that value. The second guy I have is, if in doubt, who's playing the Cardinals, right? We talked about that earlier. It's Isaiah Hodgins. The reason I'm picking him is because he kind of stands out in this wide receiver room. He's not a slot guy. He's slightly bigger. He's got slightly more to him. I imagine they'll maybe want to make a statement. Daniel Jones is going to want to get, his passing yards up. Isaiah Hodgins could be the beneficiary of that. So I think at $5,000, he's a pretty good bet for someone that might go off and get some of these long downfield targets from Daniel Jones. He'll be out to prove a point.
Yeah, I think when you're attacking the flex spot, you wanted to get different. You want to go something a little bit under the radar. So these are names that aren't going to be on many people's sort of worksheets or process for the week. But Hodgins, like you mentioned, the Giants are going to want to bounce back. If they get 20 points up, it's not going to be rest of starters. It's going to be, let's see what we can do with this offense. Let's get in a rhythm. Let's try and build and recover from such an embarrassing loss in week 1. So yeah, Hodgins, you can tell a story where actually, Saquon goes off, Hodgins goes off, maybe even Darren Waller goes off. We'll just have to see how that one plays out. But yeah, I think it's the right type of pick where you're looking for someone that's low owned and could be more valuable than people expect, because in the most unique lineup, it doesn't have to get 20 fantasy points. If it gets 15, 16, that could be enough to get as unique to fit that build. I think with Dotson, absolute great points. Love this pick. People are going to be hurt after week 1 that he was meant to be solid for a lot of the week. He was meant to be the number 1, and then obviously Terry McLaurin played, so he's going to be low owned. But that process you mentioned, wide receiver 2 against the Broncos, it's going to be a tree that bears fruits this season.
Yeah, let's certainly hope so. And we got one more pick each. Tight end position. I mean, you kind of teed it up a little bit earlier for one of them, but you got maybe a bit of a surprise for the second. So who you've got at tight end?
I mean, it's coming with a big disclaimer if he plays. So you should be able to piece.
Stay tuned for more cutting advice if they don't play.
That's what they pay me the big bucks for.
Exactly.
No, I mean, you should be able to piece it together from the hints and tips, the clues I give you. It's Travis Kelce. He's the most expensive guy on the slate, 7,600 at the Jags. It's a high over-under. It's going to be a shootout if he plays. Looking at the tight end landscape, it's it's an absolute mess, especially at the top. There's not many guys you want to pay up for that you can feel any confidence. There's potential as well that people get worried with the injury. Will he return? Will he be on full snaps? Will he see full targets? We saw the Chiefs wide receiver core. If he's back, he's gonna be getting the targets as usual. So no worries for me there. He's a perfect stack with Mahomes. He's a perfect bring back versus any Lawrence. And then the other guy is Cheetah Conquo, 3,300 against the Chargers. Now, anybody box score hunting, 0 receptions, 0 yards, 0 points, 2 targets. But I know that he was used in a lot of the passing routes. Tannehill was absolutely disgusting, which you're hoping he takes a step forward against a team that got absolutely smashed by Tua and co. And if Tannehill could throw, he had Chiggs streaking down the sideline for an absolute monster touchdown. That's all it takes, one play. We know that Chiggs, such a fast dude, such a explosive dude. One play could win you the week. 3,300. If he gets a 60-yard touchdown, that's times 4 pretty much what you pay for him. So, yeah, there's a lot of options at the bottom I like for tight end this week, but Chig is the sneaky one.
Yeah, I really like. I mean, obviously Travis Kelce, right? He's like the perfect stack up again with Patrick Mahomes. I think that's something that everybody should really be looking at. And I do like Chico Conquo as well. Like, people, obviously the Dolphins slashed them apart with Tua and Hill and Waddle, but they also had like Smith.
Yeah,
right?
Durham Smythe, yeah.
Yeah, the tight end that was there. They had, I'm just trying to look up his name because I can't remember it. There was somebody else there as well that was just, eating up. We've seen Braxton Berrios up here.
Yeah.
Who was the guy that scored the touchdown, Kev? Carcraft?
River Craycraft.
Craycraft, that's the one, right? Even he was like slicing apart that Chargers defense. So Chico Conco, he's gonna be able to do a number if Tannehill sorts out as well. So I really like both of those picks at sort of opposite ends of the spectrum. And I'm going to round up the show with, the home run hitters on the defense and the special teams. And I mean, guess where I'm going first? Slowly becoming the motto of the show. If in doubt, play the cards. It's the Giants defense. You know what? After what happened last week, you better believe they're going to want to shut out. I think you kind of mentioned it earlier, Kev. When it's time in the fourth quarter to take away the starters, they won't be doing that. Like, they're going to want to make a statement, and I think that includes on defense and on special team, especially on special teams. They may have had an absolute howler on special teams against the Cowboys, so I expect them to bounce back up against the Cardinals, who, let's not forget, the Cardinals aren't great either, which also helps. The second one I'm going to go with is maybe the ultimate risk. But again, we're looking for risk here, and I don't really have any statistical data to back this up. I'm just going on pure gut feeling. It's the Jets defense against the Cowboys, because wouldn't it be the most Cowboys thing ever to win 40-0 and then the next week just score next to nothing, right? That is just kind of the path they've been on the last few years. It's all looking great, and it just comes crashing down. So that is sort of a riskier play, but the Jets at 2,700 is a pretty good price, especially considering the Giants are 3,800. So you're saving quite a bit there.
Yeah, I mean, you've picked two New York teams. I mean, it's tougher than the MetLife turf, isn't it, for fantasy purposes, for DFS purposes? So yeah, I think with the Jets, I really like the pick. I think you've got to lean into risk. You're looking for opportunities to have sacks, to create turnovers. We know that Dak Prescott threw quite a few interceptions last season. We know that the Jets defense is pretty solid, and that price, 2,700, people are going to be scared that the Cowboys just put 40 points, but their offense didn't do a ton in the past game. Yeah. I think the Jets D's pretty solid in the main. So yeah, I think it's a great shout with getting different with the Jets. Giants, again, they're probably going to be a little bit higher owned, I would imagine, playing the Cardinals. But if you get the right pick, it doesn't matter. You can get different at tight end with paying down. There's lots of options there. There's other guys I didn't mention, like Musgrave, like like Chiga Conco I mentioned. So you don't always have to get chalky at defense. I think there's a lot of different options you can go in defense, but the Giants is one that you can be pretty confident are gonna Josh Dobbs alive.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, we never really mentioned with that Cowboys team as well. We were kind of ripping a little bit on the Atlanta Falcons offense there on the Dynasty show, which hopefully everyone's had a chance to listen to. The Cowboys had less completions on offense than that team. They were the lowest team in the NFL for pass completions last week. They had 13, which is unbelievably low, running at a completion rate of just over 50%. So maybe the Jets actually not so sneaky after all, but that's going to be up to you guys, because that's the end of the show. And hopefully we've provided some interesting insight to DFS for you this week. Kev, thank you so much for joining. How do you enjoy the show? All good?
We've had an amazing show, Max, haven't we? I mean, you won the Wildcard DFS Moneymaker Week 1. We're hoping that it's not the same outcome this week. But no, all jokes aside, I think we're putting together a great show here. Some solid picks, some great strategy in the background. Just realised as well, in the cash game, picked Goff, picked Amon-Ra, picked Sam Laporta. 3 Lions on a show.
3 Lions on a... Absolutely. Yeah, what a way to end. And if you enjoyed it, make sure that you're following us everywhere you can, including on X, where you can find us at Fantasy Wildcard, and of course at Wildcard DFS. That's a kind of a new channel, right? We're looking to build that up, so make sure you go and follow that. That'd be great. And over on YouTube too, look for the Fantasy Wildcard Podcast Network if you aren't there already. So once again, thank you so much for joining. From myself, from Kev, we will see you very soon.